Good morning, everyone. This is John with Gun Deals, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. This one here is the optics ready version. But before we get into the video, if you don't know, Gun.Deals is a website that provides you with some of the best deals in the industry. So whatever it is that you happen to be looking for, you should probably check them out first, as they'll probably save you some money. Very importantly, they don't buy or sell anything. They only point you in the right direction. Once again, that is Gun.Deals. Now, while you're here, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and does help us out quite a bit. On top of that, go ahead and comment your favorite micro compact or subcompact gun in the comments down below. And full disclosure on the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus Optics Ready is that I picked this up locally with my own money from a local gun store. I believe I paid about $470, $480 for it before taxes. Overall, for a gun with this feature set in this form factor, in this genre, optics ready, that sort of stuff, that is a very good deal. Now, getting into specifics on what is the M&P Shield Plus 9mm. This is, of course, a 9mm double stack, 1.5 stack style, so you get a flush fit 10-round magazine or a little bit of an extended 13+1 magazine as well. So again, 13+1 capacity is very good, especially when it comes to size and weight. Now, size and weight, you have a gun that is about 1.18, 1.2 inches thick, which is pretty slim. Not the slimmest out there, but it is pretty slim. A gun that is about 6 inches long and about 5 inches tall. That's going to depend on what magazine you're using. Now, weight comes in at just over 19 ounces with a magazine inserted. You're looking at about 24 ounces with a full magazine, I believe, which is not particularly bad. Now, this, of course, being the optics ready version, means that the slide does, of course, come pre-cut for direct mount RMSC pattern optics. Now, that is a really nice feature to have. I really like the direct mounting system on here because it comes with all of the proper posts. The problem with that is it does not accept the Holosun K series of optics. Now, currently what I have on here, this is the new Primary Arms Classic Series Micro Red Dot. The Holosun 407K here is a far superior optic, but because this isn't a true RMSC pattern, it does not fit, again, on the direct milled slide. Again, anything else that is cut a true RMSC pattern optic will fit on the optics cut perfectly. Now, we'll go ahead and start with the slide and work our way down from there. The slide itself is milled from a single piece of stainless steel finished in a matte black, what they call their Armornite finish. The finish itself has held up fairly well, over about 400 rounds. The barrel is also, I don't believe it's the same material, but it is still a stainless steel barrel, Armornite finish on it. All looks very good. There's very minimal wear on it so far. Though again, if you're going to put multiple thousands of rounds on this handgun, that wear will, of course, start to increase. Now, on the front of the slide, you have these little micro cuts that don't do much of anything. They do help maybe a little bit, but if you like to grip from the front of the gun for some reason, there's really not all that much traction there. On the back, you have your standard scallops that you'll get on a lot of Smith & Wesson scaly type finish. They work really well on the back, or of course you can use the optic if you so desire. I wouldn't necessarily trust it on this specific optic, but again, other optics on the market are going to be a little bit more durable. Now, as far as the iron sights that come from the factory, they actually did a really good job with the stock iron sights. So you have a high-vis orange front that also has a tritium insert for nighttime shooting or low light shooting if it helps you pick up the iron sights a little bit faster. And then in the back, you have a blacked out rear with a square notch cut into it. And you also have 2 tritium inserts. So again, if you needed to take a low light shot and you were having trouble finding your iron sights, you could do so. From the factory, I would absolutely not change out these sights. It's basically perfect. I prefer a blacked out rear and a high vis front, which they have done here. Tritium inserts for night shooting or, again, low light environments help you pick up those iron sights a little bit faster. Really not too much to complain about when it comes to the slide itself. Now, at the end of the day, this is a 3.1 inch barrel, so it's going to be the same sort of ballistics that you're getting from most of your micro compacts, again, in that 3.1 inch range. So your ammo selection is going to be important, but again, at the end of the day, 9mm makes 9mm holes. Now, moving on to the frame of the Shield Plus, this is an area where I think Smith & Wesson did a really good job. So you have their standard, more aggressive texturing on the lower half of the grip, a lot of texture on the back and the front, so it feels really good in your hand. It is a fairly aggressive grip texture. Now, as you can see, it stops about 2/3 the way up the grip, and it's really not anywhere else on the frame. Fortunately, the rest of the frame itself, while it doesn't have an aggressive texture to it, it does have almost like a very high grit sandpaper feel to it. So it is certainly not smooth or slick like you'll get from a lot of other plastic handguns. Like taking a look at the P365 that I have handy. This is my standard carry gun that I've been carrying forever now. This one here, the rest of the plastic other than the texture is just super smooth and slick, where again, even though it's not aggressive texturing, everywhere that does not have their actual stipple job on it has a very mild sandpaper feel, which is a good compromise. I would, of course, prefer to have the very aggressive texturing everywhere personally, but having aggressive texturing plus a more mild texturing is better than slick, at least in my opinion. Now, getting into controls, you, of course, have your slide stop, slide release, which is kind of like a Glock 34 style. It is very diminutive, but still easy enough to hit. It does require a good amount of force. So again, this is a fairly new gun. I've only had about 400 rounds through it so far, and I'm sure it will break in as time goes on. You have, of course, your takedown lever, which is standard takedown for Smith & Wesson, nothing special there. Your magazine release is, again, diminutive, perfect for a carry gun. Personally, I don't have to break my grip to access it. I do have fairly small hands, and on a lot of other guns, bigger guns, I do have to kind of break my grip to be able to hit it. On this one here, not so much. Now, getting into the magazine well, it is the most mild beveling you will ever see. It's almost non-existent, but it is there. Now, fortunately, on the magazines, as you can see, it kind of tapers up to that single feed from a double stack position. So it goes in incredibly easy. It kind of finds itself in there very easily. Now, 1R1s or quick emergency reloads probably aren't the most vital aspect of a micro compact carry gun. But again, with the very aggressive taper on the front of the magazines, even though there is not much of a bevel or well on the magazine well, it is, of course, easy enough to do. Now, Smith & Wesson also makes basically the exact same gun with a very small thumb safety. Now, I have actually reviewed the Performance Center version of this gun, which comes with a ported barrel, which is super nice for a micro compact. The different style sights as well, you have a not tritium inserts, you have the fiber optic front and rear, so they're super high vis in the daylight, almost more of like competition or target sights, if you will. But again, that comp barrel, a little bit better trigger, and that model had the thumb safety. Thumb safety was intuitive, easy to use. You do have a lot of trigger safeties built in, so it's not necessarily needed, but for certain people, they like to have that extra peace of mind, especially if you have a little bit of a lightened trigger, it might be something that you want. Now, getting into this specific model, not the Performance Center version, this is one of the heaviest triggers in a micro compact concealed carry style gun that I've used to date. And it did take me a little bit of getting used to. After I got used to it, it wasn't much of a problem. So you have very standard dynamics. This is, of course, their flat face trigger. You do, of course, have a trigger safety, a very wide trigger blade safety in the center of the trigger that does go 99.9% flush, so it's very comfortable. You hit a very defined wall after just a little bit of take up, a little bit of motion creep, and then it feels like a 7-pound trigger. Now, maybe this is just this specific gun. It hasn't been shot enough, hasn't done enough dry fire, but it does have a fairly heavy trigger pull compared to other micro compacts. The reset is short enough, but it's a little mushy and fairly soft. You're right back on that wall. So again, you have a little bit of take up, very heavy wall, about a 7-pound break, not too much creep or movement in the wall itself, and then a soft, mediocre reset. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I would say the trigger is overall pretty mediocre, but again, when we're talking about a micro compact, very much so self-defense, concealed carry type application, this is a acceptable trigger. And again, after I got used to it, I had no problems with it whatsoever, out to 50 yards. Now, of course, that's also compounded with a red dot, which I do prefer using a red dot. So if I was to carry this gun, and I probably will start carrying this gun once I get a good holster in for it, I think that this is a very safe, very easy to use handgun with maybe a little bit of a learning curve. If we're going to compare the trigger to what I have been carrying for quite some time, this is, of course, the SIG P365 with the curved trigger. This has a little bit more take up, maybe, a little bit of creep in the trigger, and then a super mushy let off. But the trigger pull itself is about a pound, maybe a pound and a half lighter than the Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. And the same style, mediocre trigger pull and mediocre reset. And then again, you're back on that wall, a little bit of mush and creep in the actual wall itself. And then it eventually breaks, but again, it breaks at about a pound and a half less than what you get on the Shield Plus. So overall, again, the trigger itself is nothing to write home about, and it did take a little bit of getting used to. The overall package of the handgun is still very good. Again, I was able to shoot it quickly enough up close. I was able to get a very good grip and purchase on the handgun. Now, if you have super large hands, it might be a bit of an issue for you. It does have a very mild undercut on the trigger guard. They probably could have done a little bit better job there. Again, for my hands, they fit just fine even on the flush fit magazine. For, again, people who have larger hands, you're going to have a much harder time with the flush fit magazine, and you should probably carry the 13+1, which is probably how I'd recommend doing it anyways. Now, talking about reliability, shootability, and accuracy on the Shield Plus, right now I believe we have exactly 200 rounds of 124 grain brass and 200 rounds of Tula 115 grain steel case ammo. Reliability has been 100% perfect. I did add a little bit of lube when I got it out of the box, but other than that, I have not touched it. And again, it has been 100% reliable through a couple different types of ammunition, including really crappy steel-cased ammo, which is something that I personally like to see. Now, on top of that, in accuracy, I zeroed the red dot at 25 yards. I was able to get 3 rounds in about 2 inches at 25 yards, and that's from a rested position, not standing, mind you, but from a rested bagged position, 3 inches or 2 inches at 25 yards with 3 rounds, I am perfectly happy with. It was very easy to hit shots at 50, 60 yards on a reduced size steel target. So again, in terms of raw accuracy and also functional accuracy, at least the accuracy I'm able to get out of it, I think that is very acceptable for a, again, micro compact handgun that is under 20 ounces, under 6 inches in length, so on and so forth. Shootability on the handgun did take me personally a little bit of time to get used to that trigger pull. After I got used to the trigger pull, it was very fun to use, easy to use. I was able to make the shots that I wanted to make using the handgun, and I had no other problems. So, with all of that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think of the Shield Plus in the comments down below. If there's some other handguns that I should compare it against, because it is, for all of the feature sets, sub $500 with an optics cut slide. It is a very good value as well as a very good performer. It has been so far 100% reliable as well. So, with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace off.